It's hard to believe it, but we are at the start of yet another school year. Whether the 2026-2027 school year represents the beginning of your child's journey in, say, elementary, middle, or high school, or the middle of a journey for those middle grade years, it all matters. And of course, for those who have reached the end of their journeys in elementary, middle, or high school, this year marks a culmination of growth, progress, and learning as you reach the finish line. Back to school time brings a mixture of excitement and anxiety for many families, and we hope to explore and unpack those thoughts, feelings, and concerns in this episode of Rooted in Rising as we talk about how parents should prepare their children for this school year, hear from students on what they think about their schooling experience, and of course, empower Black parents and students to take charge of their education experiences more and more each day. We hope you enjoy this back-to-school edition of Rooted in Rising. And I'm excited to say that we're filming this at the location of our ACE program, which is our summer enrichment program for Black students to support their learning in math and literacy. Thank you.
Right about now, families with school-age children, trade school students, college and university students, and working adults who take classes are in the throes of two competing forces. The desire to squeeze every bit of rest, relaxation, fun, and sunshine from a summer that was, as usual, too short, and the unavoidable swirl of back-to-school preparations. I invite you to pause for just a few moments, breathe, and join me in this episode's Call to Clarity, Education Edition. Both of my parents were professional educators at grade school and college levels. They came out of the unmatched tradition of superior Black Southern educators who had to be many times better than white educators to jump the hurdles they faced in segregated and integrated schools. Both of my parents taught in Montgomery County Public Schools. My mother owned and ran a preschool in New York City and also taught at Montgomery College. My father was an instructor and chaplain at the University of the District of Columbia. There are two things that they were always clear on in parenting their three daughters as students. The first thing was that they always understood their why when it came to the schools, teachers, and administrators they chose for their daughters. That's right. They chose the people, the places, and the schools that would pour knowledge into and define life for their children for the majority of our waking hours. The second thing was that having made those choices based on their why, no one would be allowed to place any limitations on what their daughters were capable of and allowed to do in schools. Right now, you're making those education choices for your children and for yourself, whether you are raising children or not. So, let's be clear. In the United States, parents are required to educate their children according to national, state, and local laws and standards. Most parents have no practical choice but to send their children to public schools, like the over 200 schools in our Montgomery County public school system. We'll talk about the other education choices that you do actually have in another episode. So many things about schools are set in stone before your child ever sits behind a desk, and you trust that those choices are made in your child's best interests. The pause we want you to take today, as the school year is about to begin, is to get clear about your why and make choices that support your why. My parents were clear that public and private schools could not provide the complete educational experience that their daughters needed and deserved. And we attended both in 3 states and the District of Columbia as preacher's kids who had to relocate when the church said move. So they had to decide why they were sending their daughters to school and what they expected us to get out of it. They did this year by year, even supporting our decision-making through college and graduate school. Here is the call to clarity. Here is the question. Why are you sending your child to school, and what can you realistically expect your child to get out of that experience this year? Is your why that you want the best academic experience available for your child. Well, if you know the data like we do at BCEE, you know that Black students do not receive such in MCPS, with less than half of Black students meeting literacy standards and less than a third meeting mathematics standards. Is your why that you want the best social and well-being environment for your child? And again, if you know like we know, MCPS's own data show that Black children experience anti-Black racism and over-discipline as staples of the school culture. They have few, if any, trusted adults at school and do not have a strong sense of belonging. Is your why that you want the best preparation for professional success? Even a surface-level review of our public school curriculum reveals the wide chasm between MCPS's course and experience offerings and the knowledge, skills, and abilities needed for graduates to survive and thrive in this 21st century world. So what can you realistically expect your child to get out of their school experience this year? That's what we encourage parents and children to define before the first school bell rings. Here are 3 steps that you can take. First, thoroughly understand the knowledge, skills, and abilities that your child has right now and how they compare to their school peers and other standards. And that includes students at schools with the most rich and most rigorous academic and experience options. Know your child's grades, test scores, extracurricular participation, and how they say they experience school on a daily basis. Secondly, set school year academic and experience objectives with your child and write them down. That includes classroom learning objectives, achievement levels by subject area. Well-being objectives, that means how they want to feel about learning and being at school and who at school can make that happen. Participation and leadership in non-classroom activities also matter, so talk about that, and exposures that help them shape lifestyle and career choices. Thirdly, identify the objectives that can be accomplished in school and those that must be accomplished outside of school. Now that brings us to clarity about your education choices. We are always making choices, whether we realize it or not. Sometimes we treat the traditional public education or job training or higher education options presented to us as if they are our only options because they come from sources we inherently trust. That said, when it comes to the education of our precious Black children, it is critical that we use the power of choice to accomplish the objectives we have for ourselves and our babies. So here's how we did it in Davisland, which is what my family calls our home environment. First and foremost, we evaluated the school options given to us by MCPS and the options available to us outside of public school, and we evaluated them against our why and the objectives that we set for the school year. Research the school staff by experience and race, as well as their academic, discipline, and well-being outcomes overall, and for Black students specifically. It's all online. It's in several key places on the school's website, the school district's website, and the State Department of Education website. Join the email list for your school's PTAs and local community to ask people to share about the teachers who have been the best academic and well-being outcome producers for their students, and specifically for Black students. Research the principal's background, because everything day-to-day at a school is in their control. Ask how long have they been an administrator? What are their outcomes at prior schools? And what are the opinions and experiences of Black parents at those schools under those principals? Ask your child what they have heard from other students and alumni about the school. Now you'll notice that I did not put any limits on outside options to evaluate based on whether you could afford it, whether you can get there every day, or whether your child will even want to go. Those factors are important, but they are not controlling. Once you decide what you want for your child, as all Black people do, you will make it happen. And the trust you have built with your child will make that transition ultimately successful. The schools that best meet your why criteria are the schools then you begin conversation with and you share your written why statements with those schools to get the teachers, classes, and activities that you want for your child this school year. Yes, even right now, it is not too late. Secondly, we identified people and organizations that offer what we needed outside of the school classroom. Find out the logistics and costs of participation in those activities. Understand how they fit with your family's daily life, including pacing and health. And incorporate your child's preferences into the choices you make. You do have choices, and most choices can be made again if they don't work out at first. There's a saying in the Black community, when we know better, we can do better. We are unmatched when it comes to adapting and leveling up. Please keep that in mind and bet on yourself and your family when making these important choices. As you pause to think deeply and lovingly about education choices for the children in your family and your village, consider this. Your time and your mind are unique gifts for two important reasons. Your time. You cannot get it back once it has passed, and you can't make any more of it. When it comes to our children, we owe it to them to make the majority of their waking hours time that is beautifully rich, with growth and full of soft landings. Your mind. My Bible tells me to guard my mind, and mind means thoughts and feelings. One of my mother's unforgettable pieces of advice to everyone she ever knew is, never let anyone get to your mind. She knew that our minds and what we pour into them and push out of them into the world determine who we are. This is a time for crystal clear clarity about who you and your child want to be and become. The why and the choices are yours to make. We at BCEE believe you will choose well for yourselves and for Black children. Your family, your community, Montgomery County, and the world are all counting on it.
Hi, my name's Elizabeth, and I'm a senior at Springbrook High School. This is Vivian, an 8th grader at Odessa Shannon Middle School. Today, we're coming to share our perspectives as young Black girls finishing our journeys in our schools.
What are you looking forward to most about this school year?
Well, Vivian, this school year, I'm looking forward to a lot. Starting new clubs, joining my sport again, and challenging myself with new classes, I'm looking forward to a lot. I'm also running for communications liaison in SGA, so there's a lot to look forward to this school year. What about you, Vivian? What are you looking forward to this upcoming school year?
I'm looking forward to wrapping up my year in middle school and preparing for high school. You know, just getting the most help that I can and just settling into the school year, and yeah.
That's wonderful. Back to school is full of so much. There are new sports, new teachers, new classes, as well as SGA. Do you ever feel overwhelmed?
100%. I definitely feel like the beginning, like the first few months of the school year, it's just people settling in and just adjusting to, you know, the new school year. So it definitely can be hectic, but it slowly starts to, you know, dial down as the school year goes on.
That's good.
How about you? In high school, you guys have homecoming, pep rallies. Does that feel overwhelming or exciting?
Well, it's both. Like especially with balancing all my classes as well as playing sports, it can be a lot. Like in past years, I found myself excluding myself from like certain back to school activities because I feel the need to keep up. But it's definitely fun because it all comes together in the high school experience and makes it a lot more fun.
As a senior in high school, what's something you would tell your middle school self?
Well, I tell my middle school self that she needs to listen to all the advice she was given. In middle school, I always felt like all the advice that everyone gave me was just a cliche to keep me in line. I always felt like it was unnecessary or just dumb. But looking back, I feel like it was amazing advice. I feel like she needs to lock in, focus on her classes and extracurriculars, and have fun. You know, I feel like going into high school, you kind of prioritize the experiences you'd have rather than your academics. But altogether, I would tell her just to lock in, you know, to make her parents proud. What about you, Vivian? What would you tell your elementary school self?
I would tell my elementary school self to focus on her studies and also just have fun. Like, elementary school is a very fun, carefree experience, and I think you should enjoy it to the fullest.
Yeah. Well, I hope you have an amazing back to school.
Thank you, you too.
Thank you.
So a funny thing happened in the dead of summer, which is usually a quiet time when it comes to things related to education. But on July 14th, the Montgomery County Council Office of Legislative Oversight, also known as the OLO, dropped a bombshell of a report in its evaluation of budget equity in MCPS. Let me tell you what had happened. The OLO report had 15 specific findings when it comes to budget equity in MCPS, and the report did not shy away from naming and shaming how race and ethnicity and not socioeconomic status are the strongest predictive factor of student outcomes in MCPS. Here's the exact wording of finding number 8, which spells this out. Quote, while eligibility for EML services is a strong predictor of student performance, race and ethnicity are often stronger predictors of student performance than either eligibility for special education or farms, especially for Black and Latinx students, end quote. The OLO report doesn't stop there though. Here's what finding number 9 says, quote, MCPS's budgeting and staffing practices center and privilege white students, end quote. And here's finding number 10. Quote, MCPS's budgeting and staffing practices disproportionately harm Black and Latinx students, end quote. But wait, we've got one more. Here's another doozy courtesy of finding number 11 from the OLO report. Quote, MCPS's budgeting and staffing practices especially harm Black students who are ineligible for either special education or EML services, end quote. All right, so let's unpack some of the data that supports the OLO report's findings. What you're looking at is a chart from the Maryland report card, brought to you from the Maryland State Department of Education, also known as MSDE. MSDE is responsible for the Maryland Comprehensive Assessment Program, also known as MCAP, which is a test that measures the proficiency of all Maryland students in ELA, or English Language Arts, as well as mathematics. ELA proficiency is how the state evaluates whether schools and school districts are educating children to read and write on grade level in accordance with state standards. This data shows that Black students are not being educated to proficiency, as only 48.3% achieved ELA proficiency compared to 80.1% of white students. This disparity shows up in every subcategory, as Black non-special ed students only had 54% of proficiency compared to 84.8% proficiency for their white counterparts. When it comes to farm students, which is MCPS's proxy for poverty, 40.7% of Black farm students achieved ELA proficiency compared to 49.2% of white farm students. And wealth was not enough to erase the academic achievement gap, as 57.9% of Black non-farm students achieved ELA proficiency compared to 83% of white non-farm students. The situation is even more dire when it comes to math. In math, only 22.9% of Black MCPS students achieved proficiency compared to 58.5% of white students and 63% of Asian students. And when it comes to college readiness, Black MCPS students are even more behind, with only 15.8% of Black students demonstrating college readiness upon completion of high school, compared with 46.6% of white students and 58.2% of Asian students. So why does all this data matter? Reading and writing skills are fundamental to developing critical thinking skills, advocating for yourself, and to navigating bureaucracy in all forms of life. Lacking competitive math skills means Black students are shut out of many STEM jobs, which are some of the fastest growing and highest paying careers available. And failing to ensure that Black students leave MCPS college ready means students are more likely to either never attend college or to drop out after being admitted and struggling to progress further in higher education. Coupled with all of the attacks by the Trump administration's Department of Education on cutting dollars to higher education institutions and dismantling DEI, the failure to ensure Black students are college ready is seriously costly. Here's some data to back this up from the College Board's Education Pays 2026 report. Quote, bachelor's degree holders earned a median of $81,800 in 2024, which is 62% more than high school graduates, and took home $22,200 more in after-tax income. The benefits extend beyond earnings, as bachelor degree holders have lower unemployment rates, 2.6% versus 4.3%, lower poverty rates, 4% versus 13%, and are more likely to have employer-provided health insurance and retirement plans. And how do those tragic, depressing academic disparities for Black MCPS students connect to the issue of budget equity? Here's how the OLL report ties it all together. Quote, these patterns suggest that special education and farm status serve as stronger predictors of performance for white and Asian students than for Black or Latinx students. Thus, while MCPS advances budget equity by providing more resources for students eligible for service group programs, the strategy of targeting most service group resources by special education status is inequitable, as special ed status is not the most meaningful measure of student need for Latinx and Black students. End quote. So you're probably wondering, MCPS must have responded with a sense of urgency and gratitude upon learning of all this analysis and research by the OLO, right? Wrong. I'm going to allow Valarie to tell you what had happened next.
And then this happened. MCPS Chief of Staff S.E. McGuire did not take kindly or lightly to the direct hit that the system took in the OLO report on budget equity. McGuire, who was very much in her feelings, wrote a lengthy, charged response to the OLO report in an email message to the county council. Here is a bit of her woe is me act on behalf of the superintendent and MCPS, the folks who were given ample opportunity in advance to provide input to the report. This report draws sweepingly dark conclusions from a narrowly defined and biased perspective of budget programming and allocation. This report bases many of its findings on post hoc ergo propter HOC hoc fallacies and information without legal content. It is unacceptable and irresponsible to accuse a public agency of racist resource allocation without substantial evidence, which this report does not provide. Really? But here's more from McGuire. Of critical importance, however, is the legal requirement that any distribution of funding must be made equitably and without regard to race or ethnicity. Specifically, MCPS is bound by the Civil Rights Act, blah, 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 which prohibits discrimination based on race, blah, 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 in programs or activities that receive federal financial assistance. The frequent suggestions in the report that MCPS should budget according to race or ethnicity in its allocation of resources are at odds with what is legally permissible. The legal ramifications of this report's findings should have been considered before publication. Oh, okay, so it's illegal to allocate resources or supports by race or ethnicity. Here's the funny thing about that. BCEE has actively pursued this claim at various levels of government because McGuire's claim in this letter in response to the OLO report is not the first time we've heard this. We met with Maryland Senator Chris Van Hollen's office staff and asked directly if it was illegal to say Black in specific policy or legislation, or to dedicate programs or resources to Black people. Senator Van Hollen's staff confirmed that they had seen a chilling effect when it came to state and local governments dedicating or explicitly directing policies or resources to Black people due to the attacks on DEI from the Trump presidential administration. We also met with Governor Moore's education team and asked the same thing. We even asked if they would be willing to write some legal guidance to schools clarifying that it was not in fact illegal to say Black when it came to policy and directing resources to Black people. Moore's team responded with, after careful review and consultation with our legal counsel, we must respectfully decline the request of the governor's office to issue written guidance on the legality of considering Blackness in staffing, recruitment, or related policies. You heard me right. The administration of Maryland's first Black governor and the only Black governor in the United States of America declined to stand up for Black students and families when it mattered most. In the face of escalating anti-Black racism in education policy and practice, and the destruction of civil rights and democracy in our country. But we didn't stop there. We took our inquiry straight to the horse's mouth with Montgomery County Council's General Counsel, and she confirmed there is not a legal bar to the council helping Black people. So let's be perfectly clear. Claims that it is illegal or that governments and their agencies are not permitted to prioritize or direct policy and resources to specifically support Black people are a reflection of a lack of courage and character, not one of legality. And it just so happened to have a JD from Georgetown to back that up. It is a political calculation, one in which the government or agency in particular has decided that standing up for Black people isn't worth the risk or the backlash they might face. Now let's also be clear. The threat of legal action has not deterred Montgomery County government or MCPS from standing up for other protected classes, such as LGBTQ+ community, as evidenced by the fight MCPS lost at the Supreme Court last year, and the one it is currently waging against the Department of Education, as it is investigating MCPS over its gender identity guidelines. So why is MCPS willing to risk conflict and friction with the federal government on behalf of some students, some populations, but not others? You have to ask them. As for the OLO report Ricky mentioned earlier, a report which BCEE helped shape by participating in a focus group that informed the report's findings and provided technical comments on drafts of the report, please visit our website, bc4ee.org, to download a copy of the report. More importantly, stay tuned to future episodes of Rooted and Rising as we'll continue to unpack the OLO's Budget Equity Report with interviews, commentary, and analysis. And that's what had happened.
My experience and impression of the AIDS program was that I was really happy that my children volunteered, that they wanted to. Now, they didn't initially, right? Because it meant getting up early, and they've been staying up late and having a good time. And so, but I had a conversation with them about why I thought it was important, and that it wasn't just what I deem high dosage tutoring and getting our kids, exercising that muscle again of learning. So, you don't have that summer slip, or even if you do have the summer slip, you're able to address it just before going back to school, which I thought was really, really important. But also it would exercise their muscle of getting up early and being structured and all those other things as they're getting ready to go back to school because they're in high school. But more importantly, the injection of learning about our culture and our history.
I had an incredible experience because my ultimate desire for my daughter was to be around two things really. Number one, to be around other African American Black students. And number two, to make sure that she doesn't experience the summer slide, that when she enters into the school year, she has an opportunity to continue the cultural and academic enrichment, if you will, as it relates to having this time in the summer. So when I learned about the program and signed her up, I expected it to be high level, a little bit of information here and there, and she just has a chance to connect with a couple of people. My mind has been blown. This has been, number one, absolutely incredible from an academic perspective. It really reinforced that learning is essential, reading is essential, and that curiosity is a part of her life. Number two, she was surrounded, the resources that were available, small things such as being able to come in and have breakfast, or being able to sit with other children that look like her, or ask questions and not feel less than because she's asking questions and she doesn't necessarily have the information. So from my perspective, this was an incredible program. My daughter, for the very first time, at her young age of 8 years old, had a chance to present on a stage. She practiced, she saw how important it was for her to even project and speak up and just demonstrate what she was able to learn.
For me, the most exciting thing was my daughter would come home at night, I would see her in the evening, and I would actually hear her practicing for her presentation. She actually took some homework home, and I learned a few things. So, she taught me that there were 54 countries in Africa. I didn't know that before. So she's actually at home teaching me new things. So having her gain the valuable experience of practicing something I'm always trying to instill, sometimes it feels like it's going in one ear out the other, but for some reason, her being here for the past 2 weeks, learning from Mama Lucy, it stuck. So
yeah, my impression of the program was just representation. That was a big thing that I noticed. Seeing other kids that look like my kid, and just seeing how everybody was just operating in a communal sense. That was very important to me. I'm still under the belief in the narrative of it takes a village, so it was a great experience to see everybody come together, all the volunteers, all the teachers just coming together to really show excellence through education. And I just love and appreciate everybody and everything they did. And this is something I recommend to all families.
I was impressed from the very first minute. I walked in, my daughter was welcomed with open arms. She's a bit shy, so it was great to have the teachers and the kids just give her, practically give her a big hug. And she was just welcomed in, and the excitement and the focus on our culture and making sure that we don't fall behind is so important, especially right now. I'm just very thankful for this program. I wrote on my paper, I wish it was a year-long program because it's sorely needed in our community and our country, hands down. So I'm overly impressed with this program.
Dear Heavenly Father, we thank you for this day. As we come to the culmination of this year's academic program, we thank you that you are with us and with every child in our care. This program has been quite a success, and we know that you have given us the strength, mind, body, and soul to continue the work that you have tasked us to do. We appreciate each parent, each child. We know that everything good comes from you. We look forward to another new year. Thank you for all the good things that you have done for us. Our children are our future, and we don't take that for granted. You have trusted us to care for them and guide them with your spirit. And all these things we pray in Jesus' name, amen.
I can dance to anything, don't matter at all. How about some Michael Jackson?